Patriots backup quarterback Bailey Zappe wrapped up his really struggly, scratchy preseason with another struggly, scratchy game on Friday night in Tennessee. He ended up, the numbers don't really tell the story. He didn't turn the ball over somehow, despite fumbling maybe 4 or 5 times in the preseason, and they didn't lose any of them. He didn't throw an interception. His passer rating was bad. His yards per attempt was paltry. So it was just a bad preseason for Bailey Zappe. So I would ask this question independent of Bailey Zappe. Even if Bailey Zappe lit the world on fire as the backup, I'd ask you, should the Pats have given up a 4th-round pick for Trey Lance? Because I think the answer would have been yes, regardless of how Zappe.
I think the problem with Trey Lance is that he needs game reps, and so you almost need to play him to get the most out of him because he needs that. He's only played 21 games since high school. And so, like any team that takes him on, it's going to be hard to develop him in the background. That didn't work in San Francisco. His confidence is shot right now. I'm all for taking swings at quarterback, so I would have taken a look at this. I just think kind of like what he needs, you're probably not going to be able to get him. Plus, he's guaranteed $5 million for 2000.
Oh, well, now we're getting to why
2 years worth of guarantees.
Wouldn't be in it. I'm sorry, Greg.
Yeah, it was. I think it's almost 2 years at almost $10 million guaranteed between this year and next year.
Well, most of it's paid this year.
Okay.
But yeah.
So
but next year's the problem.
Yeah, but the guaranteed money on the contract, and for a guy that, he's never going to play for you, probably, this year, maybe. Look, I'm like Bert. I'm all for drafting quarterbacks every year, bringing in whatever you can. I just don't know. It's all dependent. When these things happen, you go back to your college evaluation. It looks like the Patriots weren't very high on Trey Lance.
Okay, well, I think it's the money. If he were veteran minimum, if he were not guaranteed minimum salary, do you think they'd be interested?
Yes.
So let's all be honest. So, as usual with the Patriots, it comes back to the money. Mm-hmm. Does Zappe's play concern you?
It does a little bit. It was so bad in this last preseason game. And it's not just like, he's not playing with much around him. I get it. But you're playing against the third stringers of the other team, too. And they couldn't do anything on offense. You have to, the totality of this, the practice and the games, you have to wonder whether he's a fit for this sort of traditional Patriots offense where you got to, there's a lot on the quarterback. And it was much simpler for him in Matt Patricia's offense where it was just, we're going to tell you what to do and do it. And he was fine with that. You have to question whether he's now a good fit for this scheme.
Yes, the weird thing is like that as bad as things were last year, I think he actually was a good fit for what they were trying to do, which is more of a paint by numbers offense. He came from an air raid in college where it's just get the ball out fast. He can do that. He can go out there and play point guard. When you're asking him to sit back there and read the defense and make throws from the pocket, it's a little more difficult for him. So I think you see the limitations now. They're way more obvious playing in the type of offense he's playing in now.
Okay, there were some roster cuts today. They have until Tuesday at 4 to get down, but like most teams, they started the process early today. Carl Davis, probably the big name on there. And there's the rest of it. There's not a name that really resonates after you get past Carl Davis. And most people don't know Carl Davis, but was that something of a surprise, Greg?
A little bit. I do think that we'll have to see whether Sam Roberts made it. He's a guy who had a great training camp, great in the preseason games. Maybe they decided to go with a younger guy with a little bit more upside. But the problem with releasing Carl Davis is, who's backing up the defensive interior? If Devon Gottschall or Lawrence Guy gets hurt, you're down to Daniel Ekawele, who's a sub rusher. Right. So they are thin now at run-stuffing defensive tackle.
I'm a little surprised they weren't able to trade him for something. If you're going to cut him, that's one of the areas I know over the last few weeks talking to teams across the league where everybody's always looking for offensive linemen. There were a lot of teams that I talked to over the course of the last 3 weeks that were like, do you know anybody who's got spare defensive linemen, interior defensive linemen? So I'm a little surprised that a guy who's played, they weren't able to peddle him off or something.
Okay, finally, is there a chance the Pats are going to have 2 kickers? And what's up with the kicking thing? Most people have sort of glossed over this. The Patriots drafted a kicker and a punter in the same draft, which the first time that's happened in, I don't know, forever.
Modern era?
Ever, right? Yeah. Anyway, are the punter and the kicker going to make the team? Are they going to have 2 effing kickers on this team, Greg?
So I think both are going to make the team. They have earned that this summer.
Both kickers?
Well, no, excuse me. The kicker and the punter. Both rookies will make the team.
They both earned it.
Yeah, they've both been fine. Yeah, they've been good enough.
Okay.
Now, Nick Folk, the Patriots are hoping, because there are about 4 or 5 teams in the NFL that are desperate for a kicker. I mean, they have nothing. So I think the Patriots are expecting to get draft pick compensation for Nick Folk. The question is, if somebody tries to call their bluff and says they're just going to cut one, we're not going to give you anything, I think Bill keeps both kickers on the 53-man roster.
mean, the optics of taking a kicker in the 4th round and then cutting him would be awful. So I think.
Well, they've done it before, just from Rohrwasser.
Chad Ryland, yeah, but there were some extenuating circumstances with him too. I think Chad Ryland, I think, makes the team just because of his draft status and because of the optics of cutting a kicker after you took him in the 4th round.
Okay,
and Folk's probably more reliable still.
Yes.
So wait. So Bill doesn't want to quote unquote like lose a Nick Folk transaction, right? So like just cutting him and then having someone pick him up. And the Pats don't get anything in return. Bill doesn't like the feel of that. So he's going to keep a second kicker on the roster at the expense of what? A receiver?
No.
An offensive lineman that they need? I don't know.
Possible.
A real
Right,
football player, Greg.
That-
He'll keep a second kicker on here at the expense of an actual real football
He
player.
won't short the defense, I can tell you that much.
Just because he doesn't want the optics of like he's going to be stubborn
Well,
about
he thinks he has a commodity, and I think that he does, and so he should be able to get something. Yes.
Oh, jeez.
The 49ers, the Cowboys, the Browns, they have no kickers.
I don't know how the hell you keep 2 kickers. These 2 offensive tackles you just traded for, like you almost have to keep them. They made the team, right? Because you're not even going to get to see them on the practice field before you got to do the cut down, right? And then at receiver, the like underrated story here, Juju Smith-Schuster's knee is a mess. And that thing could explode at any point. And so you almost have to keep an extra receiver because of that. So I just like look at all of this and it's like, where are you going to find the spot for the extra kicker?
The receiver spot. How many receivers are they going to keep, Greg? And how many actual bona fide NFL receivers do they have on the team?
So if Juju is healthy, they have 3. Devontae Parker, Juju, and Kendrick Bourne. They really like Demario Douglas. They really like Kayshon Boutte. Tyquan Thornton, I don't know whether he's going to have to go on IR or not, but I think they keep 6 as of right now.
Okay, but the bottom 3 are all sort of potential flyer kind of guys who like we're all sort of intrigued by, and there's some upside there with those guys. But you know that's going to fill out your receiver depth chart.
You lose one of the top 3, all of a sudden, two rookies and a second-round pick who hasn't played or practiced at all is in there.
Are any of those 3 guys really, really ready?
Probably not. Pop Douglas is close.
It seems like Pop Douglas made the team pretty early in camp to the point where it's like, okay, if you're not throwing him out there in preseason games and getting him reps, you feel pretty good about his readiness, so he'd be the one.
Okay, so you still think there's a chance there's some move around the league for the Pats?
Yeah, I would keep an eye on the potential that they trade for a tight end. Like I think that that's on the radar.
And I think wide receiver is possible.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you give me anything more, Bert?
There are a couple of guys that I think that are look at teams that have had coaching changes the last couple of years. There are a couple names.
Okay, why do I feel like you're holding out on us? Like, what do you got?
Come on.
What are you hearing?
Got to protect his people.
Leave him alone. There's 20 seconds left in the show. I now got to start parsing through that.